This podcast is produced by Visionary Studios. Hey Wade.
Hey.
How are you?
A little cold.
Why does that sound like you're doing like an improv bit?
It's my talent.
Really? I didn't know you were a child actor.
No, I just did some musicals back in the day.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Did you get like a Tony or something for that?
No, I got an Emmy.
Really? An Emmy? So you were on TV?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Actually, no, I wasn't on TV. My friend Emmy got me a trophy.
Gotcha. And you called it an Emmy. Mm-hmm. Wow. You're so ahead of your time. So impressive.
Thank you.
It is cold. Like, I'm literally freezing. Like, I'm shivering in this room, this building. I don't think it has heat on the weekends.
That should be a crime.
I know. I feel targeted. I feel attacked. I feel unwell. But one person who isn't unwell, I don't think, at least maybe he's feeling a little bit warmer than we are, is our friend, Brian Phillips. Welcome back to the pod. How are you doing?
Hi, y'all. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing great. And you're right. It's a little warmer over here. It's rainy in LA, but definitely not as cold as where you all are.
How do you feel about rainstorms? I know it's like a big deal in LA when it rains, but like, are you a fan or no?
Personally, I grew up in Oklahoma, so I love the rain. I think it's fun to get out there, and honestly, I'm not scared of it, but I think most people in LA don't know what to do when it rains. Like, I was outside walking to get a coffee this morning, and people were like swerving on the roads. Everyone was laying on their horns. When it rains in LA, people don't know how to drive. So I think a lot of people here are scared of the rain, but personally, I love it.
That's so funny considering early this week it was maybe like negative 26 degrees in Milwaukee, and I was driving home from work and I was going around a roundabout and like the road wasn't really like cleaned, and I swear like even with four-wheel drive I was like sliding. I feel like I was about to like hit the cars that were like parked, like parallel parked, and I was like having like a heart attack. I was like,
how do they parallel park in the snow? That's a good...
It's a skill. They should get an award.
Yeah.
Your friend Emmy should get on that and getting them a little something. But Brian, it's winter. We're getting really close to Valentine's Day. People are maybe wanting to have someone to find love with. And one thing that you are really good at on TikTok is capturing and bringing people along for the ride of all your dating adventures. Is there a lucky man who's going to be going out to dinner with Brian on February 14th?
Well, it is cuffing season, so to tell you the truth, I'm still on the hunt for that lucky man, but as of now, we got no reservation. So anyone who's listening, anyone who's out there, I'm free and looking for someone to go to dinner with. It's honestly kind of embarrassing. I live in like the gay capital of Los Angeles here in West Hollywood and have been here for almost like 11 months, almost a full year, and I have no one. But we're still trekking on, we're pushing forward, and maybe by Valentine's Day we'll have someone.
So for those who are listening and are maybe an interested applicant, what are a few like qualifications that you'd like to see?
Oh my gosh. Well, first thing is just someone nice. I just want someone nice who cares about me. I feel like honestly in this day and age, finding someone who just wants to show up and be kind. I feel like I'm like my bar is to the ground when I'm saying this. I'm like someone who's willing to love. But on the real, I think people who have really cool hobbies is something that I'm really attracted to. I want to feel inspired and like do something that I don't normally do with whoever my partner is. And so I think that's the main thing I look for is like, I've never, like someone with a different thought process than I do would be really exciting. But most importantly, just someone kind and sweet is what I'm looking for.
So if you're kind, you can apply via Brian's Instagram. It's linked below. So please click that and send your application. You can include how many times you've been kind in the last week. If you're nice, if you're funny.
Got some cool hobbies.
Yeah, cool hobbies. Like list those out. Like the more obscure, the better. Like Brian wants people who like collect Beanie Babies. Like he wants that guy from iCarly. That's who Brian wants. Like if you look like that, if you collect Pee-wee Babies, that's what it was called.
What are
Pee-wee
Babies?
It was like off-brand Beanie Babies. It was on iCarly. It was like, right? It was Pee Wee Babies, right?
I think it was Pee Wee Babies.
Pee Wee Babies, yeah. Griffin, was that his name? Yeah.
Was it?
I think so. I don't know why this is coming back to me right now.
He was like one of my first.
He was so hot. He was so hot. But yeah, if you collect that, if you have something unique that you do, please send Brian your application ASAP. Brian, I will also be single. I'll be living the single life, the single dream. If you end up also being single on the 14th, you won't be alone.
Me and you, we'll have a dinner date. How about that? A FaceTime dinner date for Valentine's Day. Quick question for you all. I mean, or I guess Wade in general. Wade, I saw on your Instagram that you may be with someone. So I don't know, I'm out here on the hunt, but I kind of want to hear your advice really fast too. Are you dating someone? Will you be with someone on Valentine's Day, or what is that about?
I am with somebody, and I will be with somebody on Valentine's Day. So,
wow, that's like the first time in a second.
I don't know about that.
I mean, okay. Now that I'm getting my historical context coming back to me after saying that statement, I think there was someone in the past.
Yeah,
but they were Flop City. Yeah.
No, so I've had my frauds and I've had my frogs. But it's all about being authentic to yourself and trying to find somebody that really enjoys that about you and really, connects with that side of yourself. Yeah. So I don't know, just don't look for anyone. Yeah. Let them come to you. Yeah. I think that's my best advice.
Yeah. And I've met this man and he's so sweet and nice and funny, has his life together, like really checking all the boxes, like a man that actually like has purpose in life and you don't have to worry about like, him, like he's got his shit. Like that's amazing.
It is.
And it's been a journey. It's been a journey.
I love that. That's really inspiring, honestly. And I feel like you're absolutely right about just finding someone who's authentic and like loves you for you and not chasing after it and really like putting that good energy out there and letting it come to you is probably the way that a successful relationship comes to fruition. So I love that. I'm feeling inspired. I think that's a good way to go about it.
Yeah.
Look at you go. You're empowering Brian. Like you're so inspiring, Wade, a thought leader.
Thought leader.
But Brian, you've been living in West Hollywood now for almost a year. What has it been like for you getting into the gay community in West Hollywood? What have your takeaways been?
Oh my gosh. Well, a lot of takeaways. Living in West Hollywood has been a very interesting experience for me. I feel like on the dating scene, there's so many people in this one area. It's very concentrated to this like 5-mile block, which is interesting. I feel really seen in a gay space. I feel like I'm not a minority in my sexuality in this little, area of town. I find myself trying to really put myself out there a lot more and just explore who I am as a person, which is exciting. I think it's something that feels a little foreign to me coming from Oklahoma. And there's always something to do. Like here in LA, like you really can get a run for your money. Like there's things going on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, until the sun comes up, until the sun goes down, always stuff going on. So you find yourself having to set boundaries with yourself and know when to be like, okay, I'm going to go home. Like, I don't need to stay out till 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. I can go home and rest because I have work in the morning. Or just, it's a really exciting space. So I've absolutely loved it.
That's good. I'm glad you're loving it. How often do you find yourself going out in West Hollywood? Like, are you someone who likes to go every weekend, or is it more casual? Like, what's that like for you?
I do not think I have a gay sober friend. Finding a gay sober friend out in West Hollywood is practically impossible. But right when I moved here, I probably went out like 4 to 6 days a week. Like every single day there was stuff going on, and I was really trying to acclimate myself into this space. And going out is a really great way to meet people and have a lot of fun. But if you don't decide like for yourself, like, okay, Monday through Thursday, I'm probably going to take it a little more chill, you will find yourself out every single night. There's things going on every day. And the drinking scene and nightlife in West Hollywood is very strong. It's very fun too. And it's a great way to meet people, but yeah, I can't imagine moving to West Hollywood and being sober, because I feel like every space I've been in, alcohol is kind of a part of it. And so I've really tried to find hobbies outside of just going out. But it's a really fun time. So next time you all are here, we got to run it up. But it's a big part of the nightlife. Like, I live right next to the West Hollywood Strip, and there's like 10 bars. And like sometimes at night, I'll like hear the music going till like 5 a.m. and I'm like, wow, these people are wild.
Yeah, I think I've been to West Hollywood twice, and just like driving down the street, you look outside your window and like everyone's gay. Yeah. I was like, this is so foreign to see so many gay people in one place, and to really have like this little pocket of like community where no one is really a threat to you and your identity. It's honestly kind of, not to go back to like inspiring or empowering, but it's like really cool to see it. It's cool to have that safe space.
Exactly. And what's interesting is when you go outside of this space, you kind of realize how lucky you are to have West Hollywood and to be a part of this community, because like I mentioned before, I'm from Oklahoma. So when I go home for the holidays, I get off the plane and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that being gay, like I am a minority in that sense. Like not a lot of people are gay, and not everyone's accepting of someone who is. And so you are really protected and kind of in a bubble here, which is nice for the time being, but it's also important to leave this space to remember that there's still work to be done. You know, this space is definitely a privilege, and there's a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community outside of West Hollywood who, you know, don't have the privilege of it. And so I'm really grateful to be here in this space. And honestly, I found a lot of self-love through it. I think I had a lot of internalized homophobia growing up, but being in West Hollywood has allowed me to just be myself and not have it constantly be on my mind. Like, oh my gosh, you're different, you're gay, you have to think about your safety. You gotta like try to present more masculine in front of certain people to survive. So it's really a great space. And I hope everyone who's in the LGBTQ plus community has the opportunity to visit at least once in their life to have that same experience.
To circle back quick, Brian, to going back home, when you went back home over the holidays, were there any like reunions with like past flings, like any old boys that you had to, you know, catch up with?
Any corn-fed men?
Yeah.
I think we all have our hometown roster, but the worst part is that most of the people have like moved on. Like they're all in their own spaces too. So when I go back home, I'm kind of like, what? Like who is here? And I like start like trying to like look on like Snapchat map and see if there's anyone around. But honestly, I spend most of that time just hanging out with family. I'm like, all right. Because also there's no discreet way to like leave to go hang out or go on a date with someone when you're back home. Yeah. I'm like, hey mom, can I borrow your car to, I don't know, go like on a date? It just is like weird. Like I'm embarrassed. I'm 25, I shouldn't care, but I like can't have that conversation with my mother for some reason.
I mean, on that same point, like the same can be said for like a family vacation. Like if you're going to like a ski resort, or like you're going to like a different state or a different country, like if you're with your family, it's kind of awkward to be like, hey, like I'm going to go on a date with this guy and like maybe spend the night. Like it kind of prevents like that experience of like getting to actually see the city. And so I honestly need to be taking more trips with my friends. That's like my 2024 goal. Wade and I are manifesting a Mexico trip.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Oh my gosh. You all would have so much fun.
But Brian, going back to West Hollywood in your life over the past several months, like, do you see yourself more gravitating to friends or to dates? Like, do you see guys trying to be like friends with benefits, and has that worked for you or no?
Such a good question. So there's a lot of things to unpack there. I feel like first thing, when it comes to dating in West Hollywood, a lot of people don't know what they want. And I find myself included in that category at times. Like, I think I know, and then I'll start exploring, a relationship with someone, and then I'm like, I don't know if I really want that. And it's such a struggle because there's so many options and so many people, but at the same time, the community is also really small. Like, when I moved here, I had someone tell me, they're like, it feels big, but everyone knows everyone within like 6 months. And that is true. Like, when I go out to the bars, it's packed, but you realize that you're like one connection away from any person in any bar or any house party, if you are not already best friends with them or you know them from something else. And so you start to like become friends with everyone, which makes dating a little hard because you're like, I don't know, they're just my friend now. A lot of people get friend zoned, but also there's this thing called Peter Pan syndrome here in LA. I don't know if you all know what that is, but it's the idea that you never grow up and you're always just like, oh, I'm young, I'm free, and I'm partying. And because of the Peter Pan syndrome that most people in LA kind of have, no one wants to settle down or date, and they just kind of want to find themselves in situationships or be friends with benefits. And which, don't even get me started on friends with benefits. I do not believe in it. I can expand, but I just, it just does not work. But yeah, a lot of people in LA don't know what they want, and they're just kind of living their lives. And I find myself doing that too. But in the long term, I hope to not, get too wrapped up in that. I want to find love, but it's also hard when you're so ingrained in the space.
Yeah. And I think that same dilemma can be seen in other big cities around the country, and especially on Friends with Benefits. I would love for you to talk about that more, because like it's almost as like an excuse or like a tease of like, oh, I want to like, have a connection with you. I want to like spend time with you. But it gets to a point where it's like, you're not actually going to date this person, no matter how much you may like have interest or feelings with them. If you're friends with benefits and not making any progress towards something more serious, like, what even is that?
Exactly. It's just an excuse to not be committed in a relationship or to commit to someone. They're getting all the perks of being in a relationship with you without the commitment of it. And so to me, I just do not believe in it. Also, okay, I think the term friends with benefits doesn't make any sense either, because a friend is someone who's there when you're at the bar, you're throwing up on the side of the curb, right? They're like rubbing your back. They're helping you get home. They're like putting you in your bed. They're making you soup when you're sick. Your friends with benefits does not do that. So therefore, I just don't think they're an actual friend. Like, literally, you're just saying they're friends with benefits, but like you're just a hookup buddy. And like, no, nothing's wrong with that. But I'm like, literally, they're not your friend. Like, without the sex, are you all going to a movie and just casually shooting the shit and like, wingmanning each other at the bar? Like, no, I would never like wingman my friends with benefits at a bar. I wouldn't be like, oh no, instead of getting with me that night, you should go get with Jose or whoever it is. I'm like, no, that just does not work. And so I think the idea of friends with benefits is just absurd. Also, right when I moved to LA, I started talking to this guy, okay? And we started off, it was good. We kind of explored dating, and then we went into the friends with benefits thing, and I was lying to myself. I was like, oh no, I'm not emotionally connected to this person. Like, we're just having fun. No, I was like holding on to the idea that one day we could get together, we could make it work. And then they were just getting the perks of being like in a relationship without the commitment with me. And so that is how I got to this idea that friends with benefits does not work. Now we're actually friends. And I don't think we truly understood each other on that level until, we stopped the benefits part of it and just were like, okay, we're going to try to be friends. And now we're genuine friends. Like, we would help each other. We would wingman each other.
That's great.
Yeah.
I feel like with friends with benefits, there's always one person who's emotionally unavailable. And then there's one person that hopes that it's going to turn into something else. Exactly. And it always hurts somebody.
Exactly. I could not have said it better. That's exactly what I think too.
Friends with Benefits out for 2024. Friends with Benefits is out. If you're looking for Friends with Benefits, do not send your application to Brian.
Do not send Brian your application. I am unavailable for the Friends with Benefits.
Only if you're a rich man. Like, if there could be some excuses depending on the qualifications, but in general, we're looking for the Mr. Right here.
Always exceptions to this rule, especially if you have a private jet and you want to take me around the world, then I'm all in.
No commitment involved, no touching, just private jet and talking.
Exactly.
Have there been any fun trips for you recently, Brian? Speaking of private jets?
Speaking of private jets, I have not been on a PJ yet, but I did get to go to Vegas the other day. It was super, super fun. Here in LA, what you'll realize is that there's a lot of people with a lot of money. And it's been an interesting experience because I didn't grow up around a lot of money, but people here just seem to, at all ages, have like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in disposable income. And I have this one friend who just flew us to Vegas. I met them once I moved to LA, and everything was paid for. Like, I had never experienced something like that. They were like, last minute flight. I was working and they're like, all right, hop on this flight. We just bought it at like 6 p.m. So I like close my laptop. I head to the airport and I'm on a flight to Vegas with this like group of people. And it's such LA is so interesting for that because there's so many people who experience things like that just for being here and meeting someone random at a bar. But yeah, I feel like that was a really cool experience. And I saw someone gamble like hundreds of thousands of dollars and I was like, oh my God, like that could like change my life, just that bet. But it's a really crazy, exciting place. And yeah, so Vegas was definitely an interesting experience. Never been on a trip like that before. Hopefully I can get to go on more. How about you all? Have you all been anywhere recently?
Well, not like that, Brian.
No. I don't have a sugar daddy. I can't afford to take trips.
I can't either.
I'll drive.
Yeah, if anyone listening, wants to like give Wade and I like a few $100K,
even like $10, I'm desperate.
Yeah, that's so true.
Or like a Panera charged lemonade. Yeah, that's fine too.
Just purchase my Chipotle. That would be perfect.
You've been in LA for almost a year. What have you learned? I can imagine, because to give people context, you lived in San Francisco previously, but SF and LA have got to have differences. So what have been some of the biggest takeaways for you in LA?
Gosh, LA has been really fun, but I think I've really grown as a person being here. I think the culture and the space is definitely so different than any other part of the country that I've experienced, including San Francisco. Like here, you have a lot of influencers. It's very sceney, and so a lot of the people you meet are in the scene or they're popular, and you're trying to be their friend, but you don't want it to seem like you're just trying to clout chase. And then navigating that's been super interesting. But I think number one rule is that in LA you can't really have fan behavior. And I'll go back to something I said earlier about you're just one connection away from just about anyone here in LA. And so like you're always surrounded by people who are like TikTok famous or who maybe are in a movie or doing something really cool. And so if you have fan behavior, which is basically, you're instead of being their friend, you're just like a fan and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so excited to meet you. It makes it kind of awkward for you to be in that space because these people are just normal people trying to live their lives. And I think right when I moved here, I, for example, was always a fan of Sam Viciolo. And I saw him at a bar and I literally ran up to him and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like trying to talk to him, and it's funny now because I see him at parties a lot, or I'll see him out of the bar and we just say hi and it's very normal. But I think when I moved to LA, I hadn't really figured out that just these influencers or these people in movies or shows are just living their life just like you. And so if you come into something with fan behavior, it kind of separates you from those people when really, because then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, now I can't be myself. I got to kind of put on like my persona that I have online or that I have in that movie and really like make this fan feel seen versus like, oh, I can just have a normal casual conversation with them. And so that's been a really exciting kind of code to crack and helps you navigate the space really well. Luckily for me, I'm really bad with names and faces, so I don't always recognize these people and will often leave a a conversation and someone will be like, do you realize you were just talking to the blue Power Ranger from, you know, when we were kids? And I'm like, what? Like, no, I had no idea. I was just asking them like how their day was going. And they're like, no, that's like pretty cool. And so luckily that's where that
the blue Power Ranger.
Yeah, it's like you meet the most random, like, cool people, if that makes sense. But that's one lesson. I have tons more, but that's probably the biggest one I've learned here in LA.
Are there any situations where you find yourself disappointed in the interactions? Like if they might be more cocky than they seem on the screen?
Oh my God. Wait, that's such a good question. And yeah, yeah, the quote, like, don't ever meet your heroes is so true, because I think as someone who watches people online, right, you kind of create this expectation for that person that's almost unrealistic, because people are typically putting out their best qualities, the really shiny, great parts about them in their lives online. And then you meet them and you set an expectation that was unattainable for anyone to achieve often. And so then there's that level of disappointment in that sense. But then you will also find that sometimes people are not as kind, or, you know, their egos are kind of through the roof because they are super big on social media and they kind of feel positioned as better than other people. But I also, when I interact with influencers or, you know, people on the big screens, I try to remember that they probably have to have some pretty tough skin and can't just interact with everyone that they meet like that. Like, imagine trying to be on all the time, you know, like everywhere you go, someone's going to say hi and someone's going to meet you. And, you know, you're destined to have a few interactions with folks who, you know, you catch them on an off day and you can't hold it against them completely. But you'll also find too that these people are, you know, they're often interacting with folks and they probably don't know, does this person genuinely want to be my friend, or are they just trying to get connected with me to help them grow, you know, and their social status? Do they even care who I am, or do they just care that, like, I'm popular? So I'm sure they have their guard up in that sense too. But yeah, you'll often meet folks who you're like, dang, I really thought they were super nice, and now they're not that same person that I know from TikTok.
Because they're humans, as you said. Like, it's just like us working a 9-to-5 job. Like, that's their job. That's what they do. And it's cool. And it's easy to get in, like, that fan behavior mindset. And there's definitely times when, like, we have a guest on this podcast, like, I'm super excited about it. And it's like, it's easy to, like, get in the fan mindset with things. But they're just people. They're just living life. And even I find myself, like, having to remind that they're just normal. They're not anyone special. Well, they are. They're cool, but they're just like anyone else.
Don't tell them that.
I think that's a really good point. Like, it's good to admire their work, and I think cheer them on and think it's really cool what they do. You just don't want to separate yourself from them, because, you know, if you go into it and you're like, oh, you're so much cooler than me, then it's like, it just creates a weird vibe. So it's like finding that balance of admiring their work, definitely, like, not avoiding it. You know, if they're really popular, you can't pretend like they don't do that. You know, if they're a movie star, it's like, you can't pretend that they're not a movie star.
In one of your TikToks where you were talking about the Sam interaction, didn't you get caught because, like, you asked for his Instagram or something, and then he pulled it up and you were, like, already following him or something like that?
Yes. That was Sam Viciolo. I was just like, oh, like, so great to meet you. Like, let's get your, what's your Instagram? I'd love to follow along. And then, like, I don't know why he said that, because then when we pulled it up and I was already following him and he was like, oh, it looks like you already follow me. And I was like, oh yeah, I do. It was just so awkward. So I never do that anymore. Also, I try to avoid just pulling up Instagram here. That was another lesson in LA. Like, that used to be like when I was at a party outside of LA, I would be like, oh, like, what's your Instagram? Just to, like, try to follow along with people. But here in LA, that seems a little bit clout chasey if you take that approach, because they're like, oh, are you just trying to see how many followers I have, or are you just trying to be connected to me? And if, you know, they're not like a mega influencer, then that's fine. But even if you don't know it, if you ask that and then they have like 400,000 followers, it gets really awkward because they're like, well, we don't really know each other yet. And you're like, yeah, I thought we were just normal folks, but you're definitely pretty cool, my bad. So no worries. Yeah.
That's interesting, because I think, I mean, to your point, like when you're not in LA or a area with lots of public figures, it's very commonplace to be like, oh, I just met you, like I'll follow you, like, oh, you're a friend of a friend, oh, I'll follow you. But I can see how that could get a little awkward when there's that like social status kind of baked into that.
Exactly. And I mean, I think the other two things is just like, you have to be super authentic here because there's so many folks around. And if you're not being authentic and you are really trying to like, you know, connect with someone to, you know, clout chase or be more sceney with them or get in a picture with them because you think it'll make you cooler, it'll really show itself quickly. And it just isn't the best look. And I think it's just hard because I think a lot of people are feeling like genuine, you know, but if you ever slip too much into the, oh my God, I just really like, it would be so cool to know them versus because they're popular versus you just think they're a nice person, you want to get to know them. It really shows itself quick and it just isn't the best look. So yeah, I think the other thing that I've had to learn too, just even being here, because it's a different type of social interaction that outside of LA, it would be fine, but here in LA, it gets kind of odd and can put you on the outside more than on the inside if you're too ambitious about it.
Do you find that sometimes it's harder to make friends then?
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, when it kind of hits close because I feel like I have a lot of friends here, but you're also like, oh, are we just going out friends, or you know, would we grab coffee with each other, or you know, are we just at the bars together taking shots and like that's the extent of our friendship, or you know, oh, they are super popular, you know, maybe they have like 4 million followers on TikTok. And I'm like, oh, do they even want to be my friend? Like, I don't have 4 million followers on TikTok. So you do find yourself struggling to make friends. And I think it's really a confidence issue more than anything else. Like, I think people are down to be your friend, but you have to get over the hump that like you're good enough to be there with them too if you are just trying to navigate it. Especially in those circles of like really influential people.
Yeah. Does it almost feel like a level of imposter syndrome in those groups?
Yeah, because like, okay, there's different like friend groups, right? Like a lot of people in West Hollywood, you know, especially in the gay scene, are just normal people with no social presence. And in those groups, it's really easy just to kind of be yourself and do whatever. But then if you find yourself with a group of people who are very, you know, in the social space and, you know, they have a lot of followers and they're doing really cool stuff and you follow along on their TikToks, you're like, oh man, like, is my life as cool as theirs? Like, do they want to be hanging out with me? And the answer is yes. Like, they're down to be your friend. They're just normal people too. And obviously they're posting their most glamorous sides of their life online, but it's really hard, I think, right when you move here to feel like you can be in that space with them too. And if you go into it with the energy that like you shouldn't be there, then it's like, oh, okay, well then maybe you shouldn't be there. Like if you're kind of feeling weird in the space, like they're just trying to have fun too, you know? And so you really got to have the confidence just to say like, oh, like they're normal people. We're all just friends and you're hanging out. So I think it's a really interesting thing to navigate. And I think West Hollywood is great for a lot of things, but, you know, to be in the gay scene, to be, you know, around influential people with a lot of followings, just takes a lot of confidence. And I think to be in that space, it's a good learning experience, but it's not easy. So I think anyone who's moving to West Hollywood, I would say, like, go in there, like, believe in who you are, like, in this space you're wanted. And, like, that's the whole point of why the space was created, is for people to express themselves and be their most authentic selves. So don't lose that when you come here, and you'll be just fine.
Yeah, I was literally about to ask you, like, what advice do you have for people moving to West Hollywood? And I think you just answered the question. So look at you, Brian, like reading my mind.
There we go.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming back and chatting with us. Do you want to give everyone your socials in case they aren't following you already?
Heck yeah. Follow me at Barack_O_Brian on Instagram and TikTok. And I'm happy to be your friend. So, yay.
Yes, thank you, Brian. And you can follow us on Instagram at UnpackTHT and on TikTok at UnpackThatPod. We'll see you right back here every other Thursday. Bye, everyone.